In this video, we will discuss do loops. Statements within a do loop execute for a specific number of iterations or until a specific condition stops the loop. The do loop is used inside a data step. This is generally how it works. So in a data step, so first you specify the name of the dataset you want to create. So this is the main body of the do loop, right? So you will have a do statement to specify the number of iterations you want to run or specify a condition that will stop the loop. So the statement you want to iterate so will be included in this do and end. Of course, so before the do and end, beyond do and end, so you can put more SAS statements. Let's look at one example. Suppose we want to compare the interest for yearly versus quarterly compounding on a 50,000 investment made for 1 year at 7.5% interest. So how much money will a person occur in each situation? So this is one possible solution to answer this question. In a data step, so the name of the dataset we want to create is compound. Then we define a variable amount. So this equals to the principal, the amount we want to invest. The rate is 0.075, right? So then yearly, so this variable just compute the yearly interest, right? So we just use the amount times the rate. So in the following, so these 4 lines, so we will compute the interest you earned for each quarter. So see this is the sum operator, right? Or this is the accumulating totals we discussed before. So there is no equal sign. Yeah. And so on the left hand side of this plus symbol, so quarterly, so this is the variable, so we want to accumulate the value to this variable. Initially, so this value will be set as 0. Right, so then on the right hand side of this plus, so those values will be evaluated and add to quarterly. See, because first in the beginning, so quarterly, so it is initialized as 0, right? So see 0 plus amount, so then this just will be the amount, right? So multiply the rate, so this will be the yearly interest. Then divided by 4, so this will be the interest you earned in the first quarter. So then this amount will be added to quarterly. So then after, for the second line, so now the quarterly, so these values include the interest you earned in the first quarter. So use quarterly plus amount, so this will be your current principal in your account. So multiply rate, so this is the yearly interest, right? So then divided by 4, so that will be quarterly interest. So this amount will be further added to quarterly. So after we finish the second line, so then the value of quarterly will be the interest you earned accumulatively for the first 2 quarters. So then you similarly, so you run the third line and fourth line, and in the end, so you get the total amount of interest you earned throughout this year. And so the interest is compounded quarterly. Well, so this code definitely works, yeah, but you may notice since we repeat the statement, exactly the same statement 4 times. So can we write the SAS code to make it more efficient? Yeah, so this is why we want to use do loop. So this is an example of the do loop. You compared with the code with this one, you will see these 3 lines are exactly the same. So the difference is, so these 4 lines just becomes like this, right? So then we will say do, okay? So then we have a variable qtr. So the value, see, equals 1 to 4 just means the value goes to 1 to 4. Yeah, and so then we will run this statement, right? So means, so the first one, first, SAS will set the qtr equals 1 and then run this statement. And then SAS set qtr as 2, run this statement. Then SAS set qtr as 3 and run this statement. And then last, so SAS set QTR as 4 and run this statement. Yeah, so basically we run this statement 4 times. So it will produce exactly the same result as this guy. Yeah, but notice what's this one? So job, right? Yeah, because so here, so we just create one extra variable called QTR, and in fact we do not need this variable, and so we drop it. And I mean, in the resulting data set, we ask SAS to drop it. Yeah, so let's run these 2 pieces of code, and so we can compare the result. Right, the value, I mean the result are the same. We may drop this drop option, and so then to see, so what's the difference. If you drop this one, you can see, so we have one variable. So why this is 5? Yeah, and essentially, so for this one, I mean, SAS will do kind of a comparison, right? So then every time, see, QTR equals 1 to 4, right? So in the beginning, so QTR is set as 1. So when when SAS runs this step, the QTR will increment by 1, right? So then the QTR will compare with this. So this is the, I will say, the ending value, right? So if the QTR is smaller than or equal to that, so then SAS will continue to run this statement, right? You can see, so then QTR will becomes 1, becomes 2, becomes 3, and becomes 4. Yeah, so when QTR equals to 4, so 4 is still smaller than this 4, and SAS will run this statement. Yeah, but so then in the end, so SAS will increment, QTR will increment by 1, right? Right, and so then probably so it will be easier if we look. I mean, I will use a Excel, not Excel. I will write it in this way. Yeah, so basically, so if we want to understand this one, the easiest way is we just, I think so. I can directly write here. Yeah. So basically, we just expand this one and to know so how SAS works, right? So QTR in the beginning, see, do QTR equals 1, right? So in the beginning, so QTR will be 1. So then SAS will run this statement. So basically, we'll run whatever statement in this do loop. Yeah, and so when SAS meet this end, right? So then SAS will basically becomes 2. Just will this QTR will increase by 1. So then SAS will go back and to check so whether to compare the current value of QTR with this 4, right? To see so whether this is larger than that or it is smaller. So if it is smaller, then SAS will continue to run the statement in this do loop. And so then in the end, so SAS will add QTR by 1. Okay, so then SAS will just compare QTR with 4 again and to see so whether SAS needs to stop or need to continue. Yeah, so for this one, okay, we need to stop because 3 is smaller than 4, right? Yeah, so then in the end, so QTR will be set as 4, okay, and then SAS will run this again, yeah, because 4, of course, is smaller than 4. And after this iteration, and so then QTR increased by 1, the QTR becomes 5. So 5 then compare 5 with this 4, so it is larger, right? Yeah, so then SAS will not, will stop there, so will not run this statement again. And so then we'll continue to the next statement. The next statement after the do loop. So this is why in the output, see QTR, so the value is 5, okay? Yeah, so this is explain of this do loop processing. So this is a general syntax, so how to run that do loop. So the iterative do statement executes statements between do and end statements repeatedly. So based on the value of an index variable. Yeah, so we will say index variables equals specification, right? So this index variable just will be the QTR. So this 1 to 4 just will be the specification. Yeah, so the specification can represent a range of value or maybe a list of specific values. Yeah. So this is the most common way to specify the do loop, right? So then we will say, equals start to certain value and by increment. So the value of start, stop, and increment must be numbers or expressions that yield numbers and are established before executing the loop. Yeah, so any changes to the values of the stop or increment made within the do loop do not affect the number of iterations. So for example, so if you say do I equals 1 to 12, so then your SAS will run those statements with those iterative statements 12 times. Yeah, because so I goes from 1 to 12, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 12. Yeah. So for this one, do j equals 2 to 10 by 2, right? So for this one, I think so SAS will run the code, I think 5 times, right? Because so the value of j will be 2, cause by 2, right? So increment will be 2. Yeah, so j will be 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, right? So in total, so SAS will run those iterative statement 5 times. And the next one is, yeah, so this increment is a negative value, right? So then we will do like that. See, so first k will be 14, so increment is minus 2, right? So then we will decrease the value of k by 2 every time. So then 14, then 12, then 10, then 8, 6, 4, and 2. Yeah, because 2 we reached this end, right? So then we will stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so in total, so SAS will run those statements 7 times. This one, so this is a case with increment. Increment here, I just want to say this does not have to be a integer, right? So can be decimal numbers. Yeah, so like if you specify the do loop in this way, yeah, so you will start from 3.6. The increment is 0.5, right? 0.05. Yeah, so then 3.65, 3.7, 3.75, 3.8. Okay, so in total, so SAS will run the code 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Okay. The last one, so that's the from begin date to today by 7, right? Yeah, so notice the SAS state is saved as an integer in data, right? Yeah, so then we can start from a date to some date, so with increment by 7. By 7 just means after 1 week, right? So this is another way to specify those the list you want SAS to iterate. So here you can specify a list of numerical or character constant. So in the do loop, right? So in this case, so the do loop will execute once for each value in the list. So the syntax is in the equal, right? So on the right hand side of this equal sign, you just list some values and separated by comma. See, you may say do months, so equals 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just 3 possible values. So notice, so those are strings. So they are character strings, yeah, but not a number. So these are just a list of values, yeah, because so 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. Yeah, because so there is no clear relationship so between those numbers, right? And you just list them. Okay. So this is another case. I will say, so this is a mixture, right? You can see 1 to 5, then you list some value, and so then you use this 2 and by. So then what SAS run? See, So first SAS will do 1 to 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then SAS will run this 10, 20, 100. So then followed by 100 to 500 with increment 100, right? So SAS will do 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, and then followed by 1000. So in total, SAS will repeat those statements with x equal to each of the value listed here. Okay. The last one, well, so then SAS just do, see this is variable one. I think so SAS will interpret this as the name of variable, right? So the variable 1, variable 2, and variable 3. Okay. So this is another example, right? On January 1st of each year, so $5,000 is invested in an account. So determine the value of the account after 3 years based on a constant annual interest rate of 7.5%. Yeah, so this is how we run the code. So in a data step, yeah, so we want to create a data set. So the name of the output data set is called invest. So then in this do loop, right? So then we start from year 2001, and so we will end at 2003. Yeah, cause see, we want to know so after 3 years. So then capital. So this is again that sum operator, right? And so initially, so the value will be set as 0. Okay. So then we just every time when we run the statement, so we will add so this value, the expression on the right hand side of this plus symbol, so to capital. Because in the beginning of each year, so we will add 5,000, right? See, 5,000 is added to capital. So then this one we just compute the interest you earned in that year, right? So the capital, so plus times the rate, so you will get the interest. So then this amount will be added to capital. Yeah, so then this will be year 1. So year 2001. So then SAS will repeat the statement for year 2002, right? So then another 5,000 is added to the capital. Okay, and so then compute the interest. So based on the current amount in your balance, the current balance in your account, and so the interest will be added to that capital. So finish these 2 lines. So then SAS will repeat this again for year 2003. Yeah, so after run that, so SAS will stop. Okay, so this is how it works, right? So then this one just will be the amount of this just will be the balance, so in your account after 3 years. Yeah, so notice, so this year so becomes 2004. Yeah, so usually, of course, we mentioned before, right? So the year, so this value every time will increase, will increase by 1. Yeah, so then this is why in the end, so the value will be essentially 1 more, so larger than this ending value. Okay. Well, so then what the result will be, so if we add an extra output statement in this do loop. Well, so see, so the difference is then in here, so there is no output statement, right? Then by default, so SAS will insert a output statement in the end of the data step. So it means, so after SAS run those do loop, so then SAS finally, right? So in the end of this data step, so SAS will write the result to the resulting data set. Yeah, so then we will have only 1 row in the data. But if we add 1 output statement here, so inside the do loop, yeah, so then this just means, so within end of each year, so SAS will write the current value of this capital and this capital and a year to output. So basically, essentially, we will write one row for each year, right? So if you run this one, you will see. So SAS will have 3 rows, right? Because the output statement is inside the do loop. So basically, for each possible value of year, so SAS will write that observation to the output. So we have 3 rows in the data. Well, you can also use do while and do until statement to stop the loop when a condition is met rather than the index variable exceeds a specific value. If you want to avoid infinite loops, be sure that the condition specified will be met. So for do while, the do while statement executes statement in the do loop while a condition is true. So you will say do while. So in the parentheses, you will write expression, right? So SAS will evaluate this expression at the top of the loop. So if the expression is true, so SAS will run this statement inside the do loop. So if the expression is false, then SAS will stop. So we'll stop the loop. The do until the do until statement so executes statement in the do loop until a condition is true, right? So this just means basically, so this expression will be evaluated at the bottom of the loop. So although you write it in the front, but SAS will evaluate this expression. So after SAS run those statements, so SAS will. So if this condition does not met, okay, so then SAS will continue to run the statement, and SAS will stop until the condition is true, right? So for this one, the statement in the loop will be executed at least once, because this condition is checked. So after SAS runs the statement, but for the do while, so if initially the expression is false, so SAS will never run the statement in the do loop. Okay. Let's consider one example. So determine the number of years it will take for an account to exceed 1 million. So if $5,000 is invested annually at 7.5%. So this will be a good scenario that we may want to use do until, right? See, we want to run the loop until the capital, until your balance is larger than 1 million, right? So a year start with 0, so this is also a sum operator, right? So year start at 0, so every time, so in this do loop, so the value of year will increase by 1. So then we just put $5,000 to that account, right? So then 5,000 will be added to capital. So capital, this is also a sum operator, right? So initially, so the value of capital will be set as 0. So then this statement we just compute the interest. So you earned in this year. So then the interest will be added to your account. So then you will output the value of year and capital in that in this year. So then SAS will check whether this condition met or not. So if the capital is smaller than 1 million, so SAS will run those statements once more, right? So if the condition is met, so SAS will stop, right? So and the SAS will continue and until the statement is true. So let's run the code. You can see. Okay, right. So it's year 1. So since after 38 years, so if you invest 5,000 every year, so after 30 years, and your balance will have more than $1 million. Okay. So you can combine the do while and the do until statement with the iterative do statement. Yeah, so this is how we run it, how we do it. So we will say do. So you set the index variable just equal to the list of those values, right? So you can say start to stop by increment. Then after that, see no semicolon. I mean no semicolon, right? So you directly say while something. Yeah, so then in here, so what SAS do is, so SAS, of course, so we'll try to evaluate every value. So for those index variable you specified in this start to stop by increment. Okay, and so SAS will also evaluate this expression. Yeah, so if this is true, so SAS will keep going. Yeah, so if this is false, then SAS will stop. Okay, advantage of this one compared with the do while is, so this can definitely avoid an infinite loop in do while or do until statement. Yeah, so this while so can also be replaced by until. Yeah, so look at this one. See, so basically we also want to do, yeah, so every year, so we will so every year, so we will invest $5,000, right? So the interest rate is 7.5%, okay? And so then we want to compute the balance in the account for up to 25 years. And also if the balance is greater than 250,000, so I will stop, right? Yeah, so then let's see. We run this one. Stop at 21, right? So here, so we say year goes from 1 to 25, just means at most. Okay, so SAS will iterative. I mean, will iterate those statement 25 times. Yeah. So, but this condition is met because the condition is the value is greater than 250,000, right? Because the condition is met before we finish a 25 iteration, and so SAS stop early, right? Yeah, so if you set this to a larger number, maybe 500,000, right? So if you run this one, see from 1 to 25, yeah, so because, so even after SAS run 25 times, so the balance is still smaller than 500,000. Yeah, so means, so this condition is never met. So for those 25 iteration, yeah, so then SAS will finish that 25 iteration. Okay. So nested do loops are loops within loops. Okay. Yeah. So when you use nested do loops, so make sure to use different index variable for each loop, and make sure that each statement has a corresponding end statement. Yeah. So we will discuss that. Suppose, well, so we want to create one observation per year for 5 years and show earning if you invest $5,000 per year with 7.5% interest rate. And so the interest are compounded quarterly. Okay. See, what we do before, maybe let me copy it like that. So what we do before is something made without this line, right? And so without this line, right? So then we just we only say see, basically every year, because we will do that for 5 years, right? So every year, so 5,000 is added to your capital, okay? And then so the interest is computed and so then added to the balance, right? Yeah, but here because because the interest is calculated quarterly, right? Yeah, so then essentially, so then we will have 4 times. I mean, should run this statement 4 times, right? See, this is the current balance, so times the interest rate divided by 4, right? So this will be the interest you earned for each quarter, right? Yeah, so then essentially you need to run this 4 times. So instead of, write this statement 4 times, so then we just use another do loop, right? So as what we do in the slides, right? So we will say quarter goes from 1 to 4, so then SAS will run this 4 times. Okay, yeah, so then let's try to run the code. Right, so then we get the year, so the output has 5 observations, right? So then we get the balance in the end of each year. So then the question is, so how could you generate 1 observation for each quarterly amount? Well, see, notice this output is inside of this loop, but outside of this loop, right? So it just means, so this output, this statement will run 5 times, okay? If you want 1 observation for each quarter, so essentially, so this output should be placed inside of this nested loop, right? So if you put the output here, okay, right? Yeah, because so every time, basically every quarter, okay, so then you will output the result to the data, right? See, if you run it, you have in total 20 observations. Yeah, maybe I can, because I dropped the variable quarter. Yeah, so if I do not drop the variable quarter, so you will see. So for each year and for each quarter, right? And so then you basically you just display the balance in the account. Well, so in this year, just suppose want to compare the final result of investing $5,000 per year for 5 years in 3 different bank accounts, so that compound quarterly. Assume each bank has a fixed interest rate. Yeah, because now so the interest rate is not fixed, right? Yeah, but there are 3 possible, 3 different banks. Okay, so then how to do that? So this is what we do, right? We set banks, right? So just means, so we read, I think so. Firstly, I should say in this way. So first I create a data set, I call it banks, right? So it has 2 columns. So the first one is name of the bank. So the next one will be the interest rate. Yeah, so then we run it. See, this will be the name of the bank and interest rate. Okay. So then in the code, set bank just means every time I just read 1 row from the banks. Yeah, so then we will read the name of the bank and also the interest rate. So then for this one, yeah, so then we set the capital as 0 initially, okay, and then we just do, so this part I think so will be the same as the previous code, right? See, from year 1 to 5, so every year we invest 5,000, so 5,000 is added to capital, and so then we just do this one, we just compound the interest quarterly, right? Yeah, so if we run it, so then we will have, see, the value, the ending balance corresponding to each of the interest rate. You may notice, so see, in the previous code, we do not have capital equals to 0. Yeah, but why we want this capital equal to 0? Suppose we delete it, what will happen? So if you run this one, let's see. The value are quite different, right? So what happened? So what happened is, see, if you do not set the capital as 0, yeah, because see, initially, of course, so the capital is set as 0. Okay, so after after SAS do those calculation, run those statements for the first bank, the value of the capital, so then we start the second bank, okay? So then the current initial value of the capital will be the balance we calculated for the first bank, right? So basically we just keep adding the number to that capital, to that variable. Yeah, so this is not what we want. So basically we want to initially set the capital as 0, right? Yeah, so then in this case, so then we will calculate the balance for each bank. Well, so what is the result if I add an output statement? So without output statement, so then the output statement is equivalent. So you add output here, right? Because SAS will automatically add the output statement in the end of the data step. Well, so if I add output here, you see, so this is inside the outer loop, but but outside of the inner loop. So this just means I want to add, write observation to output for each year, right? So if you run this one, see for each of the bank, right? And so then you write one observation. Okay. So instead of here, so if you write it to here, right? So then for each quarter, so SAS will write the observation to that data set. Yeah, so I remove this part. So I run this one, you will see the output generated basically for each year and each quarter. Okay. Yeah, so this is some example for do loops.